What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Franchise Unfiltered Podcast. Today, I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Zach Beutler, making, at least your third appearance here on the podcast. So welcome back, man.
Gosh, it's a pleasure, brother.
Always good to catch up. So you've got a new brand that you're involved in. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that. And then, really, I just want to get some of your thoughts and insights on what it really takes to take a young emerging franchise concept, build it into a national brand, but do it in a smart and responsible way where you as the franchisor, but also all of your franchisees are set up for success as much as they possibly can be. There's a lot of up and coming franchise systems out there these days. And, we've all seen examples of where, brands have grown too fast, or they just haven't, really been set up the right way from the get-go. And so I know you have a ton of experience in this, so that's something I definitely want to get some of your insight on today.
Yeah, let's dive into it, man. I think between both of us and our backgrounds, I think that we can really come up with some unique value adds.
Yeah, totally agree. So I'll make sure that the episodes you've been on in the past get linked in the show notes. We don't need to spend a ton of time on your background, but give us like the 30-second kind of franchise resume, and particularly what you've done on the franchisor side prior to what you're doing right now.
Yeah, 15 plus years in franchising. I've been the single unit pioneer franchisee, one of the first to sign on multiple concepts. I've been multi-unit of multiple brands. I've lost everything and filed bankruptcy as a franchisee. I've built one of the larger, fastest growing portfolio companies in franchising. Been part of an FSO, which helps franchisors sell units across the country, and consulted with 10, 15 brands.
Yeah. I can't think of many people that have as many viewpoints in franchise. I mean, you've sat on every side of the table that you possibly can. And so, and as you kind of alluded to, right, you've had a lot of success. I know that, but you've also had some ventures that have not been quite as successful. And I think there's always, something that can be learned from both the success as well as the failures, if you even want to call them failures. But let's start with this newest venture that you're a part of. It's called Jungle Driving. So what is Jungle Driving all about?
Jungle Driving is a teenage driver's education concept. So it specializes in classroom as well as in the vehicle driver's training for teens. And what makes it so unique is that there was two gentlemen that started this brand, and one of those gentlemen built the driver safety program for UPS. And he's credited with lowering the accident rate by 70% across the country. He retires, starts this brand with his neighbor, and together, they wanted to build something unique. And of course, you have to follow the state curriculum. They took that, they blended in the UPS method, and then they added a fun teen experience into it using jungle ideology. So they classify drivers by animals, use terms like butt sniffer. It's really a unique experience. And in this space, there's not anyone that we have found that actually provides an experience that's focused on the teen.
Well, yeah, because we're basically talking about driver's ed here, right? So when you think of driver's ed, you think of like DMV, boring like book work or classwork, and then you go and drive with some, stiff instructor, and you've got the, student driver sign on top of the car. It's not something most kids look forward to. I can remember looking forward to getting my license, but I sure wasn't excited about like the experience I knew I was going to have going through driver's ed and everything that was required to get their license. So tell us a little bit more, like, so what's the experiential part of it? The jungle, concept, I'm sure makes it more interesting and appealing, to teenagers. But in terms of the actual driving, like what is this UPS, driver safety training that they've kind of incorporated into it?
Well, a big part of the curriculum internally is about recognizing obstacles and issues before they happen and being very self-aware. And so part of the thing that I learned going through is by classifying drivers by animals that you can clearly know that you need to stay away from or keep your distance from is a big part of how kids recognize potential catastrophes, essentially.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
They've done a couple things with the curriculum. They've really made it interactive and fun, and the environment the kids are in is important. They have a parents' night prior to this whole thing that starts. So as a parent, you come in and you get to help reinforce the jungle way, as they call it. And then they strongly recommend that you do a ride along with just your kid and the instructor for a kind of like a private ride along.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And I'll make sure we put links to like the website, because for those listening, go find them on social media or check out the website, because the way they have the vehicles wrapped, like the branding, everything, it's definitely going to appeal, more to a teenager than like, getting in a 2003 Toyota Corolla, to go do their driver training. And so what about the training itself? Like, how long of a program is this? Are they doing like how similar is it to like the actual driving portion that, we all went through to get our license, or how are they doing it differently?
So every state has a mandated curriculum. So
Right.
there's still going to be similarities. It's taken a different approach about how that is educated. So
Hmm.
I think a great way to explain it is, I think we can all agree the traditional education system is somewhat broken until you
Definitely.
get a great teacher that teaches it in a very unique way.
Yes.
And that's really what we're focused on.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. So, look, man, I know you. I know that your most recent venture with Horsepower Brands. You guys did some big stuff over there. You had no shortage of opportunities. Once you were looking for your next venture, your next brand to really partner with or invest in. Like you said, you've done some consulting with other franchise companies. What was it about jungle driving in particularly that you were like, okay, this is the next brand I really want to dig into and spend the next however many years of your life, helping to build?
So I need to answer this question a little bit in a unique way because it shifted dramatically at a certain point. And so, I think your background in franchising, Wes, we look for the same things. We want easy to manage. I want something that when I scale is really a duplication of the existing processes.
Yep.
My background in the nutrition industry, that the core service changed so much that we had to almost revamp the business model to stay alive. And
Mm-hmm.
I wanted a simple core service that keeps the lights on and creates profitability that you can focus on. And then I wanted, the extra, the gravy on top that I can make extra money with, that things that maybe they're not doing. But I wanted a core service.
Okay.
Uh, Experience is big for me. I'm a big experience guy. And so I wanted something that has a unique experience that we could create a premium price around.
Yes.
And then the biggest part, I'll tell you, is customer acquisition. Uh,
Mm.
I think I've consulted now, Wes, with over 10 brands. I've launched 15 brands, and the customer acquisition strategy digitally and through paid aspects has gotten harder and harder and harder to create success and
Totally. Yeah.
really create results. And I wanted something that, number one, I knew where my customers were at, so I could go directly to where they were at to spend my time. And I wanted something that was somewhat residual, and I wanted big demand with not a lot of supply. And it was like, the more I heard about the brand, I was like, wow. And so I remember I was sitting down and Fred said, or I asked him, I was like, Fred, how'd you get all these customers? I go, well, what was like what did it? He goes, oh boy,
Oh boy.
we did a mailer once, and that's the only thing they've ever done.
Wow.
And so obviously they've been around for a while, but still, it's not a one and done. You got to keep hunting. Once you get your name out there, you know exactly what you're.
Well, and you have an endless supply of kids that are, approaching that age, right? Like you're never going to run out of that. And your point about the paid marketing and advertising side of pretty much any business, it's gotten more difficult. I agree with that. But if I like put my franchisor hat on, I think it's definitely gotten more difficult to get similar types of results across, a system of franchisees, right? You may have one franchisee that for whatever reason, pay-per-click was just, a silver bullet for them, right? They got great results out of it. And then you have another franchisee, a state over, and pay-per-click's not working as well for them. I know in the franchises we own and have owned, like that's always been the case. The marketing mix that works best for one franchisee is not necessarily going to be the exact same for the other. And it's just constantly an evolving landscape. Who knows what AI is going to do, to the paid marketing side of this. I think there's probably a lot of, benefits for business owners that, that AI can bring, but, it's a steep learning curve. Like I'm trying to, really educate myself on AI, and, it makes my brain hurt. Right. And I'm not the most tech savvy guy, but I'm not in my 60s either. You know what I mean?
Well, right. So I'll tell you. So when I went, we had been talking about getting an acquisition done, and I finally made a trip up there. And I'll tell you, here's where it switched, Wes. I did a ride along with the founder. He was the instructor, a young girl driving, and her dad. And about 10 minutes into that, all I kept thinking about was, this is what my daughter and my kids are going to do. And why wouldn't I want them to go into a program or a curriculum that is superior, that is, I'm not going to say every kid wants to go to driver's ed or jungle, but at least we can make it as an enjoyable experience as possible. But I did get a little emotional thinking like we could do something so great, and it's not every day in business you get to check the boxes as an entrepreneur, and then all of a sudden you get to this bigger purpose around saving kids' lives. And that kind of like led me down a path where I hadn't honestly been before, where our LLC name is Saving Teen Lives. And everybody on the team, like that is the primary focus. It doesn't start with the franchisee results anymore. It starts with saving kids' lives. That's an extra step that we've added that gives everyone on the team so much purpose.
Yeah. Well, I've got 3 kids, 2 of them daughters, and I'm still kind of holding out hope that Elon Musk has the automated driving really dialed in by the time they are old enough to drive. But assuming that's not the case, I definitely want them in the best driver's ed program that's out there. And, the more that they're engaged in whatever the curriculum is, obviously the more they're going to retain from that, right? Like I couldn't really tell you what I learned going through driver's ed, right? Like, I've been driving for quite some time now. I've never, really gotten in accidents or anything, but, as a parent, you definitely want the best for your kids. And when it comes to their safety, and, how much of the curriculum, how much does it touch on like driving safety when it comes to phones and devices and stuff? Cause I imagine that's a huge concern for parents these days. Like, you and I are similar in age. We were rocking like the Nokia phones when we got our driver's license, and there wasn't really any need to be staring at your phone while you're driving. But that's a big deal these days, I feel like.
Yeah, and I wasn't a good driver even back then. So we actually have interior and exterior cameras, and it does use AI. It can tell if you're glancing down at your phone. So we tested it just to make sure. And one of the guys on the team tested, he drove it around the block, and it literally caught him looking at his phone. And I was like, the one time that you would obviously want to make sure that you're doing it to the T, you didn't do it.
Well, at least it will catch it, right?
Right.
Maybe he did it on purpose, but yeah. Because I know you said one of the criteria you were kind of looking for was, not a whole lot of like organized competition. I don't remember exactly how you phrased it, but what is the industry for this driver's education? Like, are most of the companies out there doing it? I'm sure it varies by state, but are they private companies, or in some places is it like an actual state agency of some sort that's like through the DMV or something like that that's putting on these?
So it's private. Now you can be school sponsored, but that's how it was when I did it, however many years ago. But things have changed and I didn't realize this till really diving in and actually doing some consulting with a different brand. What I learned was that in public schools, every activity or sport or kids group is underfunded. So
Yeah.
they all have to raise money. So there's not extra funds for the school to put this on,
Yep.
and so it's a huge. I know. So we're 6 weeks out from opening the location in Omaha, which would be a corporate location, and our biggest competitor has every single seat and every single class booked for 180 days, 6 months.
Wow.
And so, obviously the summer is the busiest time, but
Yeah.
there's definitely a demand there, and we're going to be coming in with something very unique, experience based. That's I don't want to say more flashy, but definitely has more of a national brand feel. And
Hmm.
there isn't really a McDonald's in this space, which I love. There's not a big competitor nationwide.
Well, and look, there's one thing we know as parents, and also just with our experience in franchising, when it comes to services, education, enrichment for your kids, parents are willing to open their wallets. So if you can truly come in and provide this premium experience, I have no doubt you'll be able to command a premium price compared to most of the competition. So like take there in Omaha, that main competitor booked out for the next 6 months. Are there other smaller competitors, or are they kind of a one man show until you open up?
There's several around the city, and so in a metro city of 1 million people, there's 8-10 competitors. The thing is being somewhat close to where the kids live to make it convenient for the kids
Yeah.
to come to and from. That's important. But it's a mandated service in 37 states, and in Nebraska is actually not one of them. In Nebraska, you have the option to go through the program or do like a parent or guardian guided program, and there's still that much demand. And
Yeah.
so,
Wow. Okay.
like in Michigan, for example, you have to go to a program like that.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm pretty sure in North Carolina where I'm at, you have to go through some, the standard program in order to take the test to get your license. But it's been so long since I did it. But so where did these guys start the business?
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay. And then you're getting ready to open up another corporate owned location in Omaha. Had they already started franchising before you
You
got
know,
involved with them?
they had just begun back in 2021, and one of the founders passed away during COVID, and then the following week, the other founder's son passed away.
Oh my goodness.
And so, there was about an 18-month period of trying to buy out the equity from the other partner's widow and
Yeah.
obviously grieving. And that right when that kind of got done was when Fred and I were introduced.
Okay. Gotcha. So this is pretty early stage in terms of number of locations and things like that. And this is something I really try to point out to people, and we'll get more into this in a little bit. But I think a lot of times people are immediately scared off by an emerging brand, right? Don't have many franchise locations, even if the founding location has been around for a long time. But there are so many of these types of opportunities out there that the founders recognize, hey, I've never done this franchise thing before. We should probably go and find someone that has done it, has a good track record, and bring them in. And that's where you come into the picture with something like this. And these are golden opportunities, and in a lot of cases where you've kind of got this perfect combination of like the founder that's still involved and is the expert in the industry. And in this case, it sounds like they've been operating their business for quite some time. So they're not new to it. You've got a track record there. And then you've got you with all of your experience in franchising. And so it's a good opportunity to get in early on something. Territory availability can certainly be a challenge with more established brands. And we're going to talk in a little bit about just some of the things that you've really learned over the years that you're going to be able to apply, here at Jungle Driving to avoid some of the pitfalls that emerging brands often fall into. Go ahead.
Well, no, I think I mean, people have a right. I mean, have a good reason to be scared off by emerging brands, and I think
Yeah.
I've been one of the first. I was the first franchisee of one concept. I think I was number 5 of another, and it's a different relationship when you're early. You're definitely closer. You could pick up the phone and call the owner, and you get a lot of one-on-one support. I'll
Yep.
tell you, having launched 15 brands with, in franchising, not as the franchisor and some other things, I think a lot of times there's just not enough distribution of knowledge. A lot of the knowledge falls with the founder, and then he's got this staff that, they're not, they're not executives.
Yeah.
They haven't really ran a business or ran a team for that long, if at all. And I think that's something where then you start to get some growth, and the founder is trying to jump into every single area to put out fires, and he doesn't have extra people to help him do that or do that.
Yeah. Well, and like as these brands grow and they bring on people for support, like there's a learning curve, right? I mean, I think about the very first job I got in franchising for a franchisor called 101 Mobility out of Wilmington, where we live, and I got hired as like the franchisee support liaison or something like that, right? So I was just kind of a catch-all for any question a franchisee could have. Their goal was, let's have one point of contact at the corporate office that franchisees reach out to. If Wes doesn't know the answer, he'll go get it for them or put them in touch with the right person. And so, first couple months of me doing that, I didn't know anything. Yet all these franchisees are coming to me, and I eventually learned and would like to think that I became a valuable resource to those franchisees. But there was definitely a learning curve, and that's just going to be the case with any brand that's experiencing growth and trying to scale up their internal teams and support. But so with the jungle driving, just kind of tactical stuff. What's the infrastructure needed to launch this business? Is it more mobile based? Is there like some sort of I don't know if you call it a storefront, but a classroom type setting?
There's a location. So there's a location. I did like the fact that to scale, you add another instructor that follow, and it's the same process, the same CRM, but an owner operator starts with one instructor, and they both teach and instruct. And then when you get to the actual CRM is built to where it'll alert to say you now are full. You add another instructor and vehicle, and it's the same exact process.
Mm-hmm.
You open up more classes, teach the same curriculum, do the same routes. So there shouldn't be as many surprises, as we say, as you grow.
Yeah. So you scale this very similar to a lot of like home service businesses. If it's like a truck and trailer type model, right? You're going to get, one of your rigs to full capacity, and you take it to the next level. You go out and you get another rig, hire another crew.
It is, but here's where it gets even better: is that it's like, if you compare it to home service, it'd be like getting the exact same vehicle with the exact same tools, driving and doing the exact same type of job every single day.
True.
So
Yeah.
there's not a lot of variables with this concept. So obviously there's still going to be some things that pop up, but
Yeah. And are you anticipating, I know it's early, are you anticipating more of an owner operator type profile for your franchisees where they're coming in and initially they're doing instructing, or did you say they hire one instructor?
So it'll be both. I think every franchisor, if you're not preferring owner operators, that are silly.
Yeah.
So we would love for every franchisee to be an owner operator, but we're going to have some owner op or some semi-involved in some semi-passive type of semi-passive type of franchisees that'll have a GM that drives and instructs and also has an instructor. So we do want every owner to go get the certification through the state regardless. And so that's part of we want the owner to at least be knowledgeable of the process.
Okay. So it varies by state in terms of the certification that the owner and any instructors that they hire would need to go through.
Yep.
But I imagine that's not too arduous of a process. I mean, that's a big question for a lot of people, right? Is how am I going to attract and retain good employees, right? So it sounds like this is not something where you need someone with a real technical skill set already.
If you can pass a background check and you have a valid driver's license, you can technically qualify for the bare minimum we obviously are looking for instructors that provide an experience
Yeah.
and that can bring joy in life and energy. But
Yeah. Probably no DUIs would be a plus as well.
preferably not.
Preferably not. What else should we know about jungle driving? It's unique for sure. I mean, you know the types of brands that I work with. We don't have anything else like this. It's definitely interesting. Talk a little bit more about the customer acquisition side of it. I know you touched on it some, but it's kind of rare to find a business where you really don't have to invest heavily in marketing and advertising, especially in the beginning.
Yeah, we have no digital marketing requirement for spend. So I think we're probably one of the few brands that have no requirement.
Yeah.
Now, we've there's two parts to this. So the first is we do it in phases. It's exposure, conversion, and then referrals. And we got some really unique stuff. So we do have the ability to purchase a list within so many miles of a location with a household with a 14, 15, or 16-year-old in them. So if you buy that list, you can do the 16-year-old homes this year, the 15, you only have to buy it once. And you can have 3 years worth of mailers. And we can do a call to action. And that's something that we are doing for a grand opening type of activity. So in Omaha, we're building and we're actually going to have several like battery powered cars wrapped in jungle stickers where we're going to have a toddler driver's ed available.
That's cool.
And
That's awesome. That's a good idea. That's really smart. And yeah, I mean, to me, this is the type of business that will definitely lend itself to referrals, right? Someone brings their kid to you, they have a great experience. They're telling all their friends that have kids the same age. I mean, I kind of relate it to, like there's this one swim instructor in our area, and it's the swim instructor that everybody wants to work with, right? Because she's just been here doing it forever. She got a great reputation. She makes it fun and engaging for the kids. They don't dread it. Even if they are scared to get in the water, 5 minutes with her, she's got them laughing and splashing and having fun. And, you've got to basically, like if our kids do swim lessons this month, my wife's going ahead and signing them up for April of next year. When we finish the swim lessons this year, it's the only way they're going to get on her list, because all the parents are just say, oh, this is the lady you got to take your kids to for swim lessons.
Well, so we got some exciting stuff with this. So we do a mailer first, and that's really grand opening. And it's to get we use a conversion of a discount to get the initial classes filled. We do have a budget per school. So ideally, we'd like the location to be in between 3 larger schools with, a few thousand enrolled kids in each. Okay. And so because the different activity groups and teams are underfunded, we're really just going in and giving $500 to 5 different activity groups at 3 different schools with a giant check. So we take a picture with the coach and the kids with a giant check, and we speak to them about safe driving habits for 20, 30 minutes. But here's one of the things that I'm really excited about. So we have a referral program with an immediate gratification effect. So Wes, imagine that you're a kid and you're sitting in a classroom full of 30 other kids, and I'm teaching the class, and I go, who wants to make 25, 50, 100, 200 bucks today? Everybody raises their hands.
Heck yeah.
Scan this QR code. It logs them into the app. The app is directly integrated with the CRM system, and they text out invitations to all of their friends. And as soon as their friends go on and sign up and pay, it sends them money. So you can send it at whatever referral bonus you want to send, but let's say it's $25 and they get 4 kids to sign up. It'll immediately send them $25 per enrollment, and they can download it right into their bank account, their Venmo, but buy gift cards, whatever they want.
Well, and once they get a taste of that, you're going to have some little hustlers out there, making thousands of dollars.
I definitely would have been the guy that was like, give me the school directory, there you go.
Yeah, you'd be like somehow or another recruiting other kids to help you recruit people, and I mean,
like Herbalife all over again.
Right. Yeah. And then you get a little the added benefit of some good middle school shaming if they send an invite to one of their friends who doesn't sign up,
and you can actually see it shows you the status if they've.
Perfect.
I'm really excited about that piece, and that led us to the path where we really think that we can get traffic to the school, and we don't want to be overly confident and say that we're just going to sell it out. But if we can get some kids there, we can use the referral app to really drive more referrals in for future classes. And the goal is to open up classes in the future that you might not be able to service, fill them up, and then have time to hire an instructor and get a vehicle. And so we really have to be strategic with the franchisees of how they open up classes, which the CRM allows us to do.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then, you know, one of the things I always like to think about with these different businesses is, you know, what type of referral partnership or strategic partnership opportunities are out there. Even if you're doing a lot of paid marketing and advertising, the more referral business you can generate, obviously, the better. To me, there's all types of ways that, you know, a jungle driving franchisee could, you know, really just get involved in the community, the schools. You know, that's an obvious starting point, but, you know, my mind kind of goes to, you know, like pediatricians, right? Or, you know, anyone that's working with kids and the parents of kids, you know, that they could just say, hey, you know, this is the driving school I recommend, right? Someone that the parents are going to trust the advice of the professional or specialist or whatever it is. Sports programs, like you mentioned. What are some other opportunities for those types of partnerships, do you think?
Well, you know, you can get with an insurance provider, and you don't want to just drop stuff off. You want to put together like a dual mailer. Like, hey, we'd like
Yeah,
to sponsor a
yeah,
mailer to
yeah,
really educate your customers. No, that's a great opportunity. I really think getting into public places where you're going to have either parents or kids and creating, again, it's all about an experience, is really going to be part of it. But you know, we are going heavy, and so this is where my background really lends some expertise. You know, in the old complete nutrition days, Wes, when we started, you'd spend $10,000 on radio, flip the switch, and that was that easy. I mean, that's all you had to do.
yeah,
And then you better be ready for the wave of customers. Well, that stopped working, and then it was like, now what? So
right.
then we were doing, you know, referral partners, BNI. We did all these things, and we learned that a lot of those activities are hard to replicate because if you send somebody that doesn't want to be at BNI and is not passionate, they show up on their phone and they're not participating. And so one of the things that we've done is we've created a milestone program where we're trying to, in a sense, micromanage small effort and activity based things that lead to results lead to a certain milestone that lead to the result. So, you know, for an example, the number of Facebook followers. We want to get to 500 Facebook followers, and then here's things that you should be checking off the box to make sure that you've done. Invited all of your friends. Have your staff invite all of their friends, your family, your friends. Once you get to 500, you'll win a milestone that converts to some sort of jungle buck incentive that you can use for other things.
Yeah. On the branding, I mean, you park that car out, you know, somewhere at the soccer fields on a Saturday, right? Like kids are going to notice it, parents are going to notice it. Like it's pretty bold. It definitely stands out. So I think just that alone, you know, you've got these mobile billboards driving around that are gonna, and then when they see it's a driving school, I think it probably piques their attention even more because it's so different from what people typically think of when they think of, you know, driving schools or driver's ed.
Yeah, and it's like, where do you know, immediately, I think perception of value is important. Is that where are you going to send your kid to the old Ford Taurus with a sticker on the door, or professionally wrapped, looks like a national brand? You know,
Yeah.
that makes a big difference.
Yeah, especially for something involving your kids, no doubt. Do you see this being, you know, as you guys build this out, start bringing on, you know, your first and second wave of franchisees? Do you see it being more like franchisees that are scaling to multiple locations or multiple schools, or you think most will just scale through adding vehicles for one school or combination?
I think this is going to be similar to the complete nutrition days. When I think back, you know, you're going to have we're going to have some growth, and then you're going to have the franchisees that really get it figured out, and they're going to start expanding
Yeah.
rapidly.
Yeah.
And so I think we're going to average a few. We're definitely going to be a multi-unit a 2 to 3 location average. But I really do believe that as we grow, there's going to be franchisees that they're going to have a regional manager that can run 5 or 10 or however many, and they've got it figured out and they're going to grow. And we've actually created an incentive for that. So we have a 7% royalty. As soon as they open up their second location, both locations drop to a 6.5% royalty.
Oh, wow.
And when they open up their third location, all 3 locations drop to a 6%.
Yeah, that is pretty incentivizing. Awesome, man. It's a cool concept for sure. And I'm glad that you're the one behind it, because we've all seen a lot of cool concepts with great potential, essentially go nowhere because they didn't have the right leadership team. So this one's exciting for sure. Let's shift gears and just get into kind of some best practice stuff that would be applicable for any franchisor, established, emerging, anywhere in between. And I want to get because as we've talked about, you've been on every side of this: franchisee, franchisor, consultant, big portfolio company, FSO. You've done it and seen it all. So I want to, as we're talking about some of this, pull out some things that, if you were assessing buying a franchise for yourself, becoming a franchisee, like what are some of the top things you would be looking at for your franchisor to do? And what are maybe some indicators, if you're looking at a franchise that's earlier stage, that they are laying the building blocks correctly and could maybe give you more confidence that, yes, this is early, but I feel like this is really being built on a solid foundation and has, a lot of upside going forward. So we'll get right back to the episode in just a minute. But if you've been considering business ownership, if you're already a business owner looking to expand and you're curious about franchising, I'd love to connect with you, answer any initial questions that you have, talk about a specific franchise, and detail the exact process that I use and have taken hundreds of people through to help them understand franchise ownership, find the right franchise for them, and conduct the necessary due diligence. Click the link in the show notes if you'd like to schedule a free, no obligation strategy call. I look forward to talking with you. And now back to the episode. Let's start with you've already talked a little bit about what you liked about jungle driving when you first got introduced to it. What are some of the first things that you started working on once the partnership or the acquisition was finalized? Like, where did you start?
Well, I already had a team of people. And so, my entire team has worked with me for 4 or 5 years. And so for me, I know where my strengths lie, and my strengths are hitting home runs and getting into complex problems, creating a solution, and then putting someone in place to run that issue. And so I brought people with me that have a high level of intellect around specific categories in franchising. So I went and I had someone that does a lot of automation, integration, and time-saving activities through technology, and that can build it all himself as the heavy lifter. And actually, I'll rewind. I went after people that were the heavy lifters, not the people that manage heavy lifters. And because I've really found over the last 5 or 6 years is the people that are the executive level, a lot of times actually can't do the heavy lifting.
Yep.
And so then, they're having to really, in their words, micromanage their employees, but they really don't know how to do it anyways.
Yeah.
And so I went
See that.
The creative branding and marketing. We really going to have to build a national brand. So we have to have a lot of asset creation. And then from there, a lot of branding and video content. So the head of, somebody that has led creative teams and produced a lot of video assets and 3D animations. And then another key person would be doing all of the onboarding, the learning management system that we use, the academy, the franchisee training, the curriculum management that the instructors are going to use. I brought somebody that has a lot of experience on that. And that's important for me so that I know that that's their department. They can run it, and I'm there to support them to get the results. They don't have to come through me to figure out how to do it. They already know.
Yeah.
And so for me, that allows me the flexibility to jump into areas that I know are going to create the best results.
Yeah. So you got a good experienced team with you. Everyone's kind of got their own specialty, and then you'll just, continue to scale that up from there, adding people under, some of these different specialists or departments. But, so as you got into the business and looked at what they had in place already, was there like one particular area where you were like, okay, this is what we need to fix or adjust or improve first?
Well, customer acquisition, it was the most important to me because they had no strategies and nothing because they've never really had to do it except for the
Yeah.
first time. And
Yeah.
so, you hope it's all that easy. But so we're spending a lot of time on building when a location opens strategically, what do we do and when do we do it that's going to work in most regions around the country. We obviously tried to simplify and create better baseline profitability. So, for an example, that location there was still taking payments at the location, was eating all of the processing fees when most every school around charges a processing fee on top. So I went out and found a partner that we basically will charge a 3.5% processing fee, and for a franchisee, they'll never have to pay merchant services. It's all done through the website. It's all automated, and so I think we added around 15 to 20 grand in profit to that baseline of the corporate location just by making that change.
Wow.
And again, we improved profitability and saved time. And the other was when you've been in business for 20 years and you haven't really expanded to a really high level, there's a lot of things that I just want to make sure that we're using all of the latest and greatest technology tools, et cetera. And so we did integrate camera systems into all the vehicles, and we really explored CRM systems to make sure that we had the best process and the best partner possible, which they actually did.
I was going to ask about, because you mentioned the cameras earlier, I was going to ask if that was something that you kind of added in, or if they were already using some of that technology.
They weren't, and it's tough because that came out after they had been already, they already had 10 cars. So to add that,
Go back and retrofit them with the cameras would be expensive.
Well, it's actually easy to do, but they'd have to, the cost to do it would be the issue. Is that we don't need it now, but I do think it's important in today's age where there's going to be some AI learnings and there is some gamification things that we want to do to create a scoring system where kids can rate themselves against each other.
Yeah, that would be, talk about engagement, right? Or experiential for sure. So you've got a lot of experience growing franchise systems, right? Bringing people in as franchisees. So what are some things that you're focused on with Jungle Driving to, bring in the right type of people based on, who you think you're looking for at this point in the game? Obviously the goal, as you've said multiple times, is grow this into a national brand. But also make sure you do it at a pace that doesn't get you guys out over your skis or overextended.
Oh yeah. When I look back, and I think, gosh, when we first met, Wes, we probably were both in the same game. On the development side, you kind of widen your net to get as many candidates into the process and then decide who you want. And as I've gotten more mature in this, I've kind of realized that the more specific on the avatar that you are, the better leads that you'll get, and then you can narrow it down from there. And so we're really narrowing it down where we know it's an experience-based concept. And so, we got to have people that are enjoyable to be around, that bring life and energy to enjoy to, their personalities, and they're the best call of the day or the best interaction, that everybody wants to be friends with this person or couple, et cetera.
Yeah.
And just because they're financially qualified and they got the business knowledge does not mean that you're going to like working with them and they're going to be successful.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And I think that's a very smart approach, right? Is a much more specific persona that you're looking for. And then, look, you may learn over the years that, actually we can, open it up a little bit, for people with, a little bit more of these characteristics than we thought we wanted. But yeah, for something as experiential as what you guys are doing, you need someone that's going to be high energy, personable, and be able to do it with both kids and parents, right? Which not everyone is probably going to be able to do. Um, Talk to me a little bit about onboarding, right? This is one of the biggest areas that a franchisor can obviously support their new franchisees, but as well as I do, not all franchisors do onboarding and training and say the first year of a franchisee's life cycle as well as others.
Yeah, let's dive into that. So we
Yeah.
have an automated onboarding process that's built into 2 phases, and I think there's a specific situation that I remember where I was talking to a franchisee that was disgruntled and they were underperforming, and I said, "Hey, can I just jump on your weekly meeting when you meet with the team, and let's just dive into everything to make sure that we've covered our basis?" And they had never logged into the Facebook, never posted anything. They had never logged into the referral partnership database that we had. They had never actually had a weekly meeting. The franchisee was not involved. I think his brother ran it, and they'd actually never had a meeting together.
Yep.
And so I think for us, and what I told the team is, we need to make sure that we have a process that we can monitor the performance of, and not just the result, but the activities. And so that's where that milestone thing comes back into play, where if you're a franchisee and you're going through the onboarding process and you're waiting for funding, there's a lot of downtime. Well, how do we maximize the downtime? We can really plan on the customer acquisition piece and really plan on down to the T. And then we can also document that entire process to see how well we prepared. And so I think, for an example, one of the things is we do recommend a BNI group as an example, and they need to attend the BNI group, take a picture of a selfie of them at the group, post it on social media, and then upload the link into the management system. And then from there, we recommend that they meet with one of the members each week for lunch. They upload the receipt. AI reads the receipt to make sure that it's from the appropriate time. And the idea is that we're trying to create a culture of we're doing the small things well that lead to the results.
Yep.
And so, not to say that, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to get in trouble. But if you're a franchisee and you want to go sit on a beach somewhere, how do you know that the process is being followed to the T, and not just followed, but actually the effort and energy is actually there? And that's what we're tracking.
Not only that, but it's proof of concept, as you keep bringing in new franchisees, right? If you've got 20 franchisees operating and 18 of them are very active in their BNI groups and they're getting good results from that, you have a new franchisee come in and maybe they're not on board with doing BNI. They don't think it's going to work. Well, now you've got the data to show them it does in fact work, and this is why we're asking you to do it. We're not just asking you to do this to check some box or because it's busy work. That type of aggregated data is, in my opinion, one of the most beneficial parts of owning a franchise, because it just makes it so much easier to examine your business and figure out where you've got room to get better.
Well, Wes, gosh, or what's that book? It's John Wooden, where he's the basketball coach, where he says the first thing we do is we put on our socks, then we tie our shoes, and this is how we tie them.
Yeah.
I have been on calls where a franchisee has never actually posted on their personal Facebook to join the page, or went through and just invited their friends to support their business. And
I believe it. Yeah,
so
I believe it. And those are the same franchisees that would probably tell you the business doesn't work, or it doesn't work in their market, or one of those excuses. But
that's exactly a good point. So I look at that and go, if I can't see on, if I'm as the franchisor and the owner of the franchisor, if I can't sit on a beach somewhere and know that got done, then how do I know that my process actually works? And so for us, we're tracking every single effort and activity-based KPI so that we can say this franchisee has followed the process to X percent, and then we can tie those percents to results. They get milestones for making the small effort, and then we use that, what we're calling jungle bucks, that they can use for certain activities or different levels of support.
Are you looking at gamifying this at all for the franchisees?
So Kind of. We have a dashboard system that they'll be able to measure their own performance and see every location that there's out there.
Yep.
I did talk to another a really smart guy that I look up to that sold a couple different concepts, and I said, "What would your thoughts be if we had a system called Jungle Bucks that for getting these milestones, we would give them an incentive, which is maybe like they win certain things or they win promo gear." And there was like, well, you should never have to incentivize somebody to be a business owner. But I just go back to why not? If it does actually make the process more effective, and so we are gamifying results and creating contests on
Yep.
both the franchisee side and on the student side. We're working on that as well.
Yeah. We with our Shelf Genie franchise, it's changed over the past few years. But when the original founder, still owned it and ran it, he did something similar, to what you guys were talking about. And he essentially identified like, okay, what are the daily and weekly actions that we know lead to good results in this business? And he put together a scoring system and a dashboard, and um, I would say it was somewhat gamified. And there were some franchisees that balked at it and they thought they were being micromanaged and they thought it was stupid. But you could pretty easily look, once there was like rankings or standings of the franchisees that were doing the things and the ones that were maybe doing some of the things, but not others of them, or they were kind of half-assing it. And the franchisees that were doing the things were the ones out there kicking ass in their business and doing well. And so it's like, you know, why should you have to incentivize someone to think and act like a business owner? It's a fair question, but if you've got these people in your franchise, why not do everything you possibly can to get them where they need to be, even if they need to be nudged or guided in that direction a little bit? And it kind of proves, and in that you may learn some things too, right? You may learn, hey, this actually doesn't move the needle in our business as much as we thought it did. And you may have franchisees that say, hey, this is something I've been doing and I feel like it's moving the needle. Maybe we should add this to the things that we're tracking.
I had a lot of conflict in my last venture with an individual who I actually personally brought in that this was where I wanted to go and take the business. And they had never owned a business. And that was hard for them to understand. I said, our goal is simple: create profitable, growing franchisees that have great things to say about us, and we'll have nothing to worry about. And if those things make a difference, then we should be putting resources and time there. And that was where we just really had a fundamental value difference with that.
Yeah. Yeah. At one point with Shelf Genie, because there's a manufacturing component to that, and based on your volume, you qualified for quarterly rebates. And at one point, you had to be above a certain level on average, for the quarter of these. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on what he was, partner perks or something like that, is what they called it. But yeah, you could actually potentially get disqualified from your rebates if you weren't participating, because the way the franchise agreement read, you weren't guaranteed rebates, right? And so for me, if nothing else, I mean, we were probably getting 10 grand a quarter, sometimes more in rebates. Like, if nothing else, that's good enough reason for me to do it.
So when I was in the complete nutrition days, we had 68 locations. I think we had around 200 employees. We might have had more than that. But I learned some valuable lessons. We had a ranker that ranked every location based on certain things that at that specific time we believed created success. And then we had individual rankers that showed the top to the worst employee. And we started just with the simple like average ticket, margin, and then total revenue sold. And then you get people that work part-time and full-time, so then you adjust it. And then you realize that, well, if that's how you're ranking them, you can shift their behavior so fast. And it's better to rank the activities that create successful short-term and long-term success than the actual result itself. Because if you believe that those activities work, then why wouldn't you want to incentivize the behavior to do them? And when
Yeah.
we started doing that, gosh, it was, I remember we had this product contest, and we did we put it on the ranker, and we sold the actual franchisor's entire like inventory out, and they had like 20 weeks of the inventory. We sold it all in 1 week, and then we had to start telling them which contest we were going to run next. And
So they can stock up.
yeah, so we really, I mean, you can really shift behavior by gamification or the dashboard systems.
Yeah.
You can, if you're not careful or experienced or just calculated, you can shift it in a way where, I remember when we started our margin, we had a big rank percentage based on margin. And well, that we learned that a lot of the low margin products that people kept coming back for weren't getting sold. But 3 months later, the retention was way down and our sales were suffering. Well, service went down, retention went down because we were linking a lot of heavily on margin.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. You can come up with some really interesting insights that may be kind of counterintuitive, if you're really tracking, as much as you possibly can in your business. Talk to me a little bit about technology. You've referenced it a couple times. Are you guys, I know you said you spent a lot of time looking into CRMs and things like that. Are you doing anything with AI? I mean, I feel like AI is such a buzzword these days. I mean, every franchisor is going to tell you, they're using AI, but like, are there opportunities that you've seen, just in that franchisor franchisee relationship where, AI can really enhance that and make things easier?
We are in really one area so far, and so we do have an executive on our team that is specialized in that. And so for us, it's really making sure that we can control issues in real time and apply the right resources, capital, or energy into fixing problems before they get out of hand, or the ones that are taking up most of the time. And so, how do you know which those are? So we have really two platforms. One's called the Vine line, where every issue a franchisee has to go through one centralized place, and then it gets leveraging some AI. It gets classified based on what we believe the issue is, and then quarterly we can review where all of the issues came in across the system. We
Yeah.
can say, hey, did anybody actually know that the cameras in the cars were having an issue across multiple locations, and that was eating up a lot of our franchise business coaches' time? Well,
Yeah.
now we know, and we can figure out what the solution is. So that's really one, and that's really important when you start a brand and you're going to have some growth, because you don't just have a few franchisees with similar issues. You have a lot coming fast. So
Yeah.
if you can organize it and understand it and then make decisions, that's great.
Yeah. If you can aggregate it and figure out, okay, like this is a recurring issue, not just like this one franchisee is having an issue with this. And, you could even pick up things in the training, right? Like, hey, this is something we need to enhance our training on because, 75% of the franchisees seem to be struggling with this one area of the business. I like that a lot. That's smart.
And the other is, one of the issues that we had is a franchisee would need something and they wouldn't be able to find it. So then they'd have to call and take someone on the time away from whatever they were working on. In this case, they'd fill out that support and we would find that, but they'd still have to wait for the answer. So we have something that we call the cheetah chat. And so let's say that you have a vendor and you need to give a horizontal logo and you can't find it or don't know where it's at. You can say, I need the horizontal logo for Jungle Driving School. And it'll say, here it is, download now, done.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
At the franchisee level, trying to, how do we speed up?
Yeah, well, that makes everyone's life easier, right? Because as a franchisee, it can be very frustrating to not know where to find something that you need. And then, now you're taking what should be a 20-minute task and it's turning into potentially multiple days to get it figured out. And then obviously it saves, you and your team time and they can focus on other things. We'll get right back to the episode, but I wanted to quickly share a free resource with you. If you're curious about franchise ownership and want to learn more about how countless people, including myself, have leveraged franchising as a way to create more freedom for themselves and to take control of their livelihood, I've put together an ebook. It's called Franchise Wealth Creation, and it's the perfect starting point for anyone that's just curious to learn more about this whole franchise thing and how I've helped hundreds of other people navigate all the steps involved in understanding and researching franchising. So click the link in the show notes, fill out a short form. I'll send you the ebook. I think it's a great starting point if you're curious at all about learning more about franchising. All right, let's get back to the episode. One final thing I want to hit on, and then we'll wrap this up. But you kind of referenced I think in regards to you personally having some friction or some conflict with, someone in your last company, but that's something that's inherent to franchising, right? I mean, franchisee, franchisor, it's a partnership, right? And so in any partnership, there's going to be friction from time to time. What are some of the things you've learned over the years? What are some of your best practices? And that could apply to a franchisee as well as a franchisor when it comes to like the best way to handle conflict in that partnership relationship.
Well, that's a great question. I think if you're, and this is really for anyone in a partnership, if the partnership isn't balanced, which what I mean is you can have equal equity, but if they're not balanced financially, it doesn't really matter what the contract says. The person with more capital can do things to apply pressure, which they're not supposed to do. But so I think you want to make sure that you have no surprises going in. You have a very equitable agreement between people that someone with more capital or resources can't apply to the other to make it fair.
Right.
That way, when you have clear disagreements, you have a clear resolution of how to solve them.
Yeah.
And then the other, where a lot of my friction came was a lead person that we brought on at the top level. I think you have to make sure that you really bring people on that have similar values. And there's a really good quote that says a lot of times you have people that you're trying to take to the highest level, but they don't want to see you there. So they want to go there too, but they don't want to see you there. So you got to make sure that you're really partnering with people that have similar values. And I think that's something that everyone that came with me to this organization, we have alignment. And even we were about to hire somebody recently, and one of the people reached out and said, "Hey, I would like to have a meeting on that specific person because I don't think that I think they're talented, but not the right fit culturally." And that was exactly what I wanted in the organization.
Heck yeah. Yeah. What about as a franchisee? What if you have some, legitimate constructive feedback for your franchisor, not just bitching and moaning because, you're not doing the things you should be doing to get the results in your business, but, legitimate constructive feedback or some sort of friction, right? Because sometimes that can, to your point, earlier about equitable relationships, like franchise agreements, if they're written right, do a good job of kind of accounting for just about any scenario that could arise in the relationship. But it can still be kind of intimidating sometimes for a franchisee to approach the franchisor, if they feel like they aren't getting what they should be getting, if they have some constructive feedback. Do you have any advice on the best way for a franchisee to approach that?
I just had a conversation about a month ago with a franchisee that I knew. And I said, the worst thing you can do is get a bunch of franchisees together to then go knock on the door. It immediately is going to create separation and a wall. So the best thing you can do is fly to the corporate office. And I know that it might suck to fly on your own dime, but you want to be in person with the decision makers and you want to be reasonable. And I think something that I learned was an outcome that is acceptable, both parties won't like. And so if you're a franchisee and you're coming, you want a certain outcome and the franchisor is not going to like it. Well, a fair exchange is where you meet in a place where you're both not quite happy.
Yeah.
But you got to be reasonable. You have to have data to back up the issue. And you want to be, hey, I'm here as part of the team and I want to help. And, we're all rowing the boat in the same direction. And I want to see everyone get to that top of the mountain, not just me. And this is a solution that I think the system could benefit from, and be reasonable with your exchanges. If that does not work, then you have to take it to another level. But most people are reasonable. And if you're going through and you're looking at franchise brands, I think you can kind of see if they're, you should be kind of asking questions to say, is this a reasonable company, or is this a reasonable owner, or is the executive team reasonable with how they operate?
Yeah, no doubt. And same thing, with the values point that you made, right? You should be able to kind of flesh out, is this a franchisor? Does this leadership team have values that align with mine? And do I feel like this is going to be a good culture fit? But dude, so much more we could dive into, but I know you've got a lot going on, so I want to respect your time. Where should people go if they want to connect with you? If they want to learn more about jungle driving, where should we point them?
Well, number one is they should call you to make sure they're the right fit, because you've known me for a long time and you know who we're looking for.
Yes, sir.
So that would be number one. From there would be jungledriving.com.
Awesome.
And
put it in the show notes.
Go back to that, Wes, because I think that's an important part, where the worst thing you can do is start diving into a brand that you're going to spend a lot of time with, where you're not going to get accepted. And that's where you have a unique perspective. You've been on both sides of that aisle. So
yeah,
and that helps a lot.
I'd say I'd be curious if you kind of see the same. I mean, certainly not with every brand, but I see a lot of brands, I would say, getting more tight with, I mean, kind of to your point, right? Narrowing down on that persona that they're really looking for in their franchisees, and they're getting a little bit tighter, with their approval process. And you see people that, get almost all the way through that process and they don't get approved. I think, this is a conversation I have with everyone that I work and kind of coach through this process with. I think sometimes people don't necessarily believe it when I say, like, some franchise companies will turn you down if they just don't think you're the right fit. I think a lot of people feel like it's more like no, if I'm willing to write them a check, they're gonna take me. But that's with the best brands out there, that's not the case. And part of what I can do is make sure that you are spending your time looking at brands that are not only likely to be the best fit for what you're looking to accomplish as an individual, but also the types of brands that are likely to, really want to have you as part of their team.
Well, and you're in a unique position where you're part of a large network of people that do what you do. That things get out. So when brands aren't doing well, people talk, and so you get to see a lot of you'll open a lot of closet doors and see the skeleton that you would not ever be able to see unless you were in your position.
Yeah, it's super beneficial, because even if obviously I try to stay in touch with everyone that I've worked with and helped, get into a franchise business, but there's brands out there that I just haven't yet placed anybody with, but I can probably either go get the information or I'm probably going to hear it even if I'm not looking for it.
100%.
So, brother, good times catching up with you, man. I'm excited to be able to work with you again on jungle driving. And I know you're going to take this thing to the moon, so it's going to be fun to watch. But thank you for being here. Always appreciate it.
100%. Thanks for having me, brother.
Thanks, everyone.